I already clicked the button.
Okay. Well,
Let's see if it's actually starting on this end. It is starting. Everything is up and running. Welcome to Mr. Jackson's Peanut Butter Hour. Today is Film Club. As you can tell, I've got this scene from Inglourious Bastards pulled up that we're going to be talking about, because we're going to be talking today about script writing and dialogue and how dialogue functions. And I am not a big fan of the Quentin Tarantino. I'm not like a huge Quentin Tarantino guy. Many people definitely are, and especially when it comes to film students, Quentin Tarantino is like a go-to. Hey John, hey Jocelyn, glad you guys are here. Glad you're getting some nostalgia. So when it comes to this stuff, hey, it's Blue and Brianna, everyone's here. This is great. This is a great time. When it comes to dialogue and talking about how dialogue works and the tensions created in dialogue, Inglourious Bastards is a really great movie, especially this opening scene. So we're going to dive into it and get into that sort of stuff. I'll give you guys some ground I'll do some ground stuff so that we can figure out what we're looking at and pick apart the dialogue a little bit better there, so that we can create good dialogue. But before all of that, take a deep breath. It's Tuesday. It's Peanut Butter Hour. It's been way too long since I've seen you guys in real life, and peanut butter can't fix all of our problems, but it can at least fix this right now. So I miss you guys. Get some peanut butter. Enjoy some peanut butter with me. Once again, Reese's Pieces eggs. I went to the grocery store yesterday and bought some. So I'm restocked, and Miss Ely can't get to them because they're hiding in my desk. That's not a challenge. Okay. We're safe. I'll hide the snacks. With that being said, feel free, if you have any questions about anything, I'm always more than happy to hop onto tangents. So if you want to talk about anything else while we're talking about dialogue, go right ahead, ask away. We'll discuss those things. All right? I don't know if you've seen all the memes about social distancing from your fridge that I've been seeing, but I've started using the phrase the quarantine 15. I'm enjoying my diet during these 3 weeks so far. All right, let's get into it. So when it comes to dialogue, the thing that I've said many times about how dialogue works, or how dialogue should work, how do I not have a piece of paper by my desk? The thing that I've said many times about how dialogue should work is that basically you think of a story, you think of a narrative like a piece of paper. And the way that the piece of paper works is ultimately it flops around, it floats around, it does whatever it wants to do. And this is the natural way that dialogue works. So when you're thinking of like how human beings actually talk to each other, for the most part, I am in Reese's heaven. That is correct. For the most part, when we talk about how actual dialogue works, to be completely realistic, it's like a piece of paper floating in the wind. This is a piece of trash paper that I've used to write down coordinates for Minecraft, so we can throw that away. But here we have a piece of paper. Think of it like floating in the wind, kind of listless. This is how normal conversations go. I'm going to have a conversation with you. You're going to mention that you like Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. I'm going to say, oh my gosh, I really like Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, but I try not to eat so much sugar. And then you're going to say, oh yeah, I heard sugar was bad for you. And then we're going to kind of float around. We're just going to have a normal dialogue. What makes dialogue really work in movies is when there is tension that's created. So you don't just have, let's talk about whatever. Maybe you have your dialogue is now grounded, right? So it's floating around, but at least it has a general topic. This is what a good conversation would look like, a natural conversation. At least we know what we're talking about in general. We have a point that's anchored to, so we know in general we're having a conversation about let's say, in this case, film dialogue. General conversation, film dialogue, and we float around on that idea, right? So when you give your dialogue a thesis, it's like one point in which your piece of paper is clung to. Then when you give your dialogue another point, right? So that now there's 2 points and they're pulling against each other. You now no longer have a no longer have a floating piece of paper that's going all around and doing its own thing. You have a piece of paper that's pulled really tight, right? And the reason why that works is because it allows everything to be more clear. When I'm holding this piece of paper up to you, you can obviously see what is happening. It also causes this sort of tension in you. You want to pay close attention to what we're talking about because there is focus on what is happening, right? This is dialogue creating a tension within a narrative, right? So ultimately what we're looking for is 2 points that are pulling against each other that makes us care about whatever the person is saying. Think about it this way in real life. You and I, we pass by each other and I say, hey, how's your day? The paper is floating. You say, my day's pretty good. All right. The paper floats away. That's a general conversation. I say, how's your day? You say, I don't know. I've had better days. Something really tragic happened. Now we have a piece of paper that is bolted to the ground. We are talking about what your day is like, and it's a real conversation. So once you have that, you now at least have a topic for conversation, right? Now, what if I say, oh, I didn't actually mean how was your day? I was trying to go somewhere else. I'll talk to you later. And then I'm pulling this way. And in your conversation, you're like, no, I really need to talk about this tragic situation. Can you please come back? No, I've really got an important date that I got to go to. I really don't have time to talk right now. Now we're pulling against each other. What do you mean you don't have time to talk? You should have time to talk. I mean, you just asked me how my day was. Now there's a dialogue that's growing. And that usually manifests itself as an argument, right? I have an argument with somebody. I'm trying to go one direction. They're trying to go another way. I say, I hate your opinions. Your opinions are stupid. They say, no, you're stupid, right? And in pulling in those 2 directions, we have a dialogue that is fueled back and forth. You don't walk away from that conversation because you're engaged in the conversation. No, you don't understand. I really have to go. No, don't go. I need you to talk to me right now. No, why would you need me to talk to you? You don't even understand. I'm late. I have to go right now. This dialogue naturally occurs. You have one person who wants to do something. Everything that they're saying resonates with the reality of that. You have another person who wants to do something else, and everything that they're saying is resonating with the reality of that. So as we look at an example like, I wonder if I can, no, too big. I'll do it theater mode. All right. As we're looking at this clip from Inglourious Bastards, it starts off, ooh, I said the bad word. All right. It starts off, this is the whole beginning. Now, you'll notice that if you've ever seen a Quentin Tarantino movie, most Quentin Tarantino movies float around like a piece of paper. Very boring. No offense to Quentin Tarantino, but he does a good job of creating natural dialogue. It's just that there's a lot of the dialogue, and a lot of that dialogue is kind of floating about. Then what he does is he creates a tension within that dialogue. And so there will be something where, like, one of the famous scenes from another one of his famous movies, they're pointing a gun at somebody and they're having a normal conversation. And so it's something where it's like, hey, what's the name of a Big Mac? And they're pointing a gun at somebody, so there's this tension underneath the dialogue. In this case, I feel like things really came together. So once upon a time in Nazi-occupied France. We're going to cut forward so we don't get flagged too quickly. We have this scene, this natural, normal life. Imagine that as one point within this structure, right? Everything is normal. They're trying to live a normal life.
Va me chercher de l'eau à la pompe pour que je me débarbouille. Et rentre à l'intérieur avec tes sœurs.
You notice this that's happening in the background. Oh, you can't see it? Is it not moving at all? Oh, come on. Come on. Okay, cool. Let me fix it. Booply booply boop. Window capture? Okay. Try it this way now. It's once again only giving you... You can hear it, but you can't see it. Hufflepuff. I almost deleted myself from this. It's just stuck on the frame with the dude with the axe. Yeah, it's stuck on that for me too. Window capture. Deleted. Window capture. Bring it on back now. Yeah, it's the same thing. Oh, did it pop out a different clip? No. Okay, we're hearing it. No, we don't want mini player. Here, we'll just go full screen with it. I won't be able to see what you guys are saying, but maybe this will... Did that help? Did we cut to another part in the plot? Yeah, okay. Look, I'm back. I was hiding behind it the whole time. Maybe if I cut it just like this, it might pop up bigger. All right. Nope, still not playing for you guys. We get the audio, but it's not updating the actual screen. Maybe YouTube's mad at me. Like Netflix works, but YouTube won't play. Well, luckily I've got a secret, and it's stealing. YouTube downloader. Tee-hee-hee. Good to know. I'm glad that we won't have this problem moving forward. I won't try and use stuff from YouTube anymore. YouTube's too good at it. They're like, you can't watch YouTube and be on stream right now. Like, don't be stupid. Well, I was stupid. What are you going to do about it? Boodly boop. Oh, always with the stealing. But it's for educational purposes. They sent out a thing, too, that was like, make sure that you're still following all the same rules that you would in the normal classroom. And I'm like, it's for educational purposes. I would definitely show this clip in the classroom if we had the opportunity. So it's just a matter of figuring out how to do that. Can you guys see the chat now? It just like went to the next video. To the next window. Well, I'm not going to close it. Give me a second. Here, I'll mute the chat screen. This is lovely. Now you can hear it. Let's figure out how to get that on here. Window capture. Number 2. Nope, not that one. Why is it not letting me cancel? All right. I might be able to media source. Browse. I'm doing some advanced stuff right now. Thank you guys for sticking around with me here. Aha! Media source is playing. Media source is doing whatever the heck it wants on top of my face. I'm definitely going to get in trouble for this one because I have no idea how to pause it. Oh, God. Hey, look, at least I'm on top of it now. Okay. So this was the scene I was talking about before. Now you can see that the stuff in the background is becoming in focus, and she's driving up. He is using the axe. I think I can do this. As long as I'm like talking about it, they're not going to copyright strike me for this scene. So we're just going to try and go through it all the whole way without pausing, despite the fact that I definitely need to pause in order to talk about this. How do I pause you? And I'm sure it's pretty loud. Bring it on down. It's a very pretty scene. Yep. So there's this awkward tension that's going on right now. I feel like I have to like point at him, right? You see these people coming off in the distance. You see him sweating. There's tension. Immediately from the start of it, you see this rural life pulling in one direction while everything else is pulling in the other direction. His family in one room, something coming off into the distance. Before we even really have dialogue, the reason why it matters that it's like, hey, go get some water and go inside is because it's pulling in one direction. Now go inside with your sisters. Go inside, right? Constantly pulling in one direction. I think I have to keep on commentating over it so that they don't get mad at me. So we're just going to rush through this, right? He's sweating. He's scared. He's freaking out. We haven't even gotten to the intense dialogue part, right? So we can tell from this situation that they're clearly Nazis. That's the reason why the introduction gave us that point of view. So now we immediately have this, right? Obviously, he's nervous on one end, and then the way that the Nazi is presenting himself, right? So you're kind of confused because you have 2 points, but you're not really sure where the tension is. The points seem, I mean, literally, physically, very close. So the paper is still relatively floppy in this situation. But then as we go inside, there's this awkwardness about the way that he's presented, the amount of like properness coming from the Nazi versus the amount of like frigidness and fear coming from the people who are there, right? We don't even know why there's tension yet. We just know that there's tension, all right? As we're watching it, I got to keep commenting. So feel free to give me little notes down here before it shuts everything off and gets mad at me, all right? So I like that we chose a foreign language dialogue because this helps us to understand the aspects of the foreign language, the aspects of the language that are being used outside of the words that are being used, right? This being a dairy farm, one would be safe in assuming you have milk, right? So there's this like awkwardness. He kind of comes in and is dictating everything, right? I should get out of the way of the text on the screen. There we go. That's good. So milk is being poured. And then there's this tension, right? Because there are 2 forces that are pulling against each other. But they're not ultimately at this point too much, and the dialogue's not driving it, right? Would the tension be from him being very open and freely speaking and everyone being confined and shut off? Yes. So there's this aspect of like him kind of come in and dictating things and them kind of like, I don't want to do this. You can feel the I don't want to do this in the way that it's being spoken. Everything that he says, when he says, I want milk, you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, why do you want milk? Why do you want milk? Please join me at your table. Why? And yet he's like giving into these things at every step, and it's making for this increased tension. So why does he want them to go outside? It wouldn't offend them. Could you at least ask these lovely ladies to step outside? More and more requests that are creating this tension, and every single time he's kind of going for it. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll do what you ask me to do, because of course I'm not going to stand up to this Nazi. But you have this increased sense of fear or dread in what's being talked about, right? And at this point, we don't even know what's driving the dialogue. So as we're watching this, I think it's fair that some people would be like, I don't really know why I'm feeling so tense other than that he's a Nazi. So there's somewhat of this that's like laughable. I've been led to believe you speak English quite well. We're going to go into the English. I think there's going to be cursing. So brace yourself. Notice how at every step of the way, he's making requests, he's talking a lot. I can't hear what's going on now. I got to get headphones. Luckily, I have them right here. Will it cut out audio for you guys if I wear headphones? No, because I can't even hear it. And of course, it cut out the audio for you guys. And I don't get to hear it. Okay. They pulled me down? Okay, great. I'll do it that way. Is it still making noise? Why is it? My audio input is like really weird. It's for educational purposes, guys. Can you all hear me at least? Or is it still pulled down? Still down? Can't teach anything on YouTube. Come here, kitty. Here, I'm back. Woo! I like that I lock. Your stream is no longer being blocked due to copyright issues. Okay, great. It popped up and it was like, we're blocking your stream due to copyright issues. So at least I knew that. All right, that's a plus. To all the 7 people who are still here, that's great. Lovely. Try horizontally flipping it so that you guys can just hear the dialogue maybe that way. Or maybe I can just show you the bottom of the screen. But the issue is it's also not letting me hear it. So I don't know how I want to do this. If I pull up Inglorious B words, I can get it on iTunes. Oh, it's on Netflix. Great.
Knowing if you are familiar with who I am.
All right. Before we get pulled down, all 6 of you that are still here, yes, we are. We're talking about the very first scene of Inglorious B words.
Are you aware of my existence?
All right. Let me see if I can get a window capture on this. That's right, I can. Y'all are watching this for the Little Mermaid whistling. I'm going to get taken down for Little Mermaid whistling too, aren't I? Whoop, almost X'd out of it. Just that big. Okay.
Yes. This is good.
Nope.
Are you aware of the job I've been ordered to carry out in France?
Yes,
Oy vey.
Please tell me what you've heard.
I've heard that the Führer has put you in charge of running up the Jews left in France,
Hey, look, it's me.
who are either hiding or passing for Gentile.
The Führer couldn't have said it better himself.
So, for some reason, you get to watch this black screen now because it's just not loading. It's just not going to load this stuff for us.
Je suis au regret de vous informer que j'ai épuisé me to the conclusion that they've either made good their escape or someone is very successfully hiding them. What have you heard about the Dreyfuses, Monsieur Lapetit?
Only rumors.
I love rumors.
All right, I'm going to keep talking over it. So it doesn't
Facts
get
can be
too
so
mad.
misleading. Where rumors, true or false, are often revealing. So, Monsieur Lapetit, what rumors have you heard regarding the Dreyfuses?
So,
Again, this
the
is
biggest thing that
just
we're
a
getting
rumor,
from this
but
is the amount of tension that is
we
in
heard
the dialogue.
the Dreyfuses had made their way into Spain.
Oh, yikes. The desktop audio was high, too.
Having never met the Dreyfuses, would you confirm for me the exact members of the household and their names?
So the tension that we're seeing in this aspect of the dialogue is really coming from the fact that we have one person who's dictating a lot, hey, let's go do this thing. Hey, let's go do this thing. And we can tell from, no, the bark was part of my life. We can tell from the way that this is happening that he does not want to listen. He does not want to obey. He's pulling in a different direction, and yet he consistently is giving in, right? Think about this through the lens of like what makes for good improv comedy is that idea of you should always say yes. You should always be affirming whatever the other person said. That makes for a weird tension that is happening in the way that you're talking to each other, because they're saying, oh, this terrible weird thing happened, and you're like, I guess I have to make that work. Right? So when he comes into the house, you know he's not wanting him to come into the house. You can see that there's a tension in the way that he says this stuff. Even just the way that he says, like, yes, ends up making you feel a discomfort, right? So when these two things are pulling in opposite directions.
The father, Jacob, wife, Miriam,
And he's naming all the people in the family.
brother,
Is it too quiet now? That better?
Hold the smoke.
30, 31.
Continue.
And the children, Amos,
So as we're doing this, we can see that the tension is all in what's not being said, right? That we are not directly addressing the tension. That's what makes this so powerful, is that we're not talking directly to what the main problem is. We're allowing normal conversation to take place that increases that tension.
Shoshana was 18 or 19.
Now,
Really sure.
there's a shot that's happening right now. As he's going through these details, it's panning down past his leg. We're wondering why this is happening. And as it dips under, we see the floorboards, and it is revealed that there are people hiding under the floorboards. All right? So now we fully understand what the tension was and what's being revealed. Notice how that happens at the same time that he is probably delivering the most boring part of the dialogue. The most boring part of the dialogue being a list of names. He's just saying, this person is about this old, this person is about this old, there's probably these people who are involved, right? And he is giving out all this information, again, obeying what the Nazi wants him to do. But as he's doing that, you can tell there's this increased tension. And as soon as it starts to get boring, as soon as the names start to be like, okay, now he's just like listing names. Why am I watching this even? We suddenly pan down and we reveal, without the dialogue, we reveal what the tension is. So notice how, if I were to do this with any other piece of dialogue, I would say something like, how was your day? I'm pulling in one direction. I'm trying to be nice. The other person is saying, I'm having a really bad day and I really want to talk about it. I'm saying, I have to leave, right? I am now explicitly stating what the tension is within the dialogue. I really have to go. And on the other end of it, I really want you to stay. This is what romantic comedies are based off of. Romantic comedies are one person being like, this is what I want in a romantic relationship, and another person being like, well, this is what I want. And now let's laugh about the awkward tension that comes about when our two desires aren't being met. But everything about that is very explicit. Let me tell you how I'm feeling. Let me tell you how I'm feeling. Oh my gosh, those aren't the same things. I guess we feel different things. And all of a sudden you've got a Netflix Christmas special on your hands, right? Like, I don't want to be married. Well, you're going to have to settle down sometime, Santa Claus, right? So in this situation, the more explicit you make the dialogue, the less realistic it is, because people don't talk like that. I would never say to my friend, I've really got to go, if they spoke back and said, hey, I'm having a really bad day. So if they're having a really bad day, I need to establish that there's something really important going on beforehand. And if I need to do that through dialogue, I can. I can say, okay, right before I walk up to this person, I look at my watch and I'm like, oh crap, I'm late. I see this person off in the distance and I say, hey, how you doing? And they're like, actually, I'm having a really bad day. You can tell from the way that they look that their eyeliner is runny, their eyeshadow is runny, or whatever, however makeup works. They've clearly been crying. It's rough, right? And so now they don't really want to talk about what they're feeling, but I don't really want to listen, right? When you kill the bat Santa Claus, yeah, so you have to be married, right? There's a whole different plot for Santa Claus. So as you have these two tensions, if we don't make those tensions explicit, if we instead imply them, right? Where I just see somebody crying, and then in my dialogue, I'm like, it seems like you're having a rough day. And they're like, yeah. My character looks at his watch, looks off into the distance, shuffles his feet a little bit. Do you want to talk about it? Asks the character. I mean, you're the first person who's asked. I don't really want to talk, but I think I have to, right? Something like that. Or, just more crying, something like that. That way the dialogue is not the main thing that's pushing the tension. It's just highlighting what the tension is. If you have a piece of dialogue that's like, let's all talk about these names, and then you pan down and show what the real source of tension is, then all of a sudden it's illuminated that listing these names is just a way to further his investigation into what's going on. All right, let's watch a little bit more. So they're all covering their mouths. They're not talking. Can I have another glass of your delicious milk? So creepy.
Monsieur Lapéry, are you aware of the nickname the people of France have given me?
See how casual and kind the conversation seems to be?
But you're aware of what they call me.
And notice how he's not even explicitly stating this, right? Are you aware of the name that the people have given me? Are you aware of what they call me? And he's like, I don't really care about those things. I'm aware, right? So it seems to add validity to what is happening, right? We're not explicitly stating what the tension is. We're not saying, I want to go this way, you want to go that way. We can see he is reluctant to give in to the questioning. That little bit of tension is pulling things a little bit tighter, right? Because everything up till now, he's been more than willing to listen and to obey. But every single time he does, you're kind of like, ooh, I don't like that. I don't know why he's doing that. And so as it progresses, you're kind of like, now that I know that he's keeping people under his floorboards, he should be doing something to get this guy out of here. And so there's greater tension that's building in the dialogue. Now, how we would do that within our own dialogue, if we wanted to create dialogue that had that sort of implied tension, you want to think of the tension itself as a third character, which you are not going to refer to, right? So I'm sitting here, we're talking, it's Mr. Jackson's peanut butter hour, and I can see something off screen, right? And as we're talking, I might say something like, man, I'm really hungry, guys. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling really hungry. And you're like, no, I'm actually fine. I've had plenty to eat. That's okay. And I'm like, yeah, but, it's just like 3 o'clock every day. I have this special little video. You know how that goes when like I get this desire to do these videos and I'm just like, I'm not referring to the actual thing, but through this implication, of course it's seen Apocalypse Now. Through this implication, we're starting to piece it together. There's something that he really wants. And the fact that Mr. Jackson really wants that thing, which is, of course, peanut butter. Welcome to Mr. Jackson's Peanut Butter Hour. The fact that he really wants that thing is driving the tension that we feel, right? And you either not caring about what the thing is or caring about it still increases the tension because it's pulling. It's saying either I want this thing, this third entity, right? Or I don't, but I'm still interacting with it and therefore creating greater tension within our dialogue.
What are you aware of?
understand.
And I like how everything about that, him giving in to his request there, was all sorts of subtle ways of being like, I don't want to participate, right? So you didn't see this, but he sits back in his chair. He has a pipe that he has lit, and he has this glass of milk that he poured for the Nazi, and he's just like biting it to clearly convey, like, I don't really want to talk. And then he passes the milk over, and then he says it. And he says it through his pipe, right? Everything about that implies, I don't want to say these things. I don't want to talk about this out loud. And yet I'm giving into your request. All of that implication within the dialogue is making it a lot deeper, right? So think about this in the context of, we have this romantic comedy. The romantic comedy is about Santa Claus having to get a wife. And we then explicitly say, Santa Claus has to get a wife. He meets this woman, and the woman is like, man, I absolutely hate marriage. There's nothing I want less than getting married, right? She says those things out loud. We have explicit stated tension, right? But in reality, that's not how those things would go. You wouldn't have an actual conversation with somebody where you say, I have to get married. And they say, well, I don't want to. If you did, that would likely nip that whole thing in the bud. You'd be like, okay, you don't want to get married and I have to get married. I'll see you later. Swipe on the next person, right? But in this situation, what we're doing is we're introducing these characters. We know that they have different motivations. The fact that he's a Nazi looking for these people is one motivation. The fact that he is a countryman that is trying to hide the people is another motivation. These tensions are not spoken out loud, yet we know that they're implied. So let's apply that to romantic dialogue. In a romantic dialogue, we would say something like, we would start with just like, oh, hello, right? They meet in this setting, and they don't know anything about each other, but through unspoken cues, you can tell that they're attracted to each other. There's that famous TikTok sound that's just like, here's the steps to flirting. I forget what it is. Like, look down, look back up, and smile, right? And so those three things you can convey, this person is being flirtatious. However, then you have the maybe Santa Claus character, look down, look back up, and smile. And then you have the other person like turn awkwardly, right? And then they talk about something entirely non-romantic. So like, I actually have a dog poop cleaning business. I go door to door around my neighborhood, and I clean up my neighbor's dog poop. It doesn't pay well, but like it's pretty good work, right? And so now you have this tension, this person who's like clearly not wanting to have a relationship, and this other person who's like, for whatever reason, they're motivated to find a relationship, and they're motivated to find it with this person. So you have Santa Claus's character being like, oh my gosh, that's a very nice thing to do. I actually, if I found out that somebody was doing that, I would put them on the nice list. And you're like, dude, Santa, you got to up your game and leave. Do not keep talking to this person. And then eventually that tension builds. The person wanting to leave. I'm feeling really sick to my stomach. I just had diarrhea last night. And so I think I'm going to go back up to my hotel room. And Santa being like, no, it's totally okay. I actually have something that could fix that problem. And he pulls out a candy cane and he's like, peppermint really helps with stomach flu. And you're like, oh, this is so awkward. And then she finally laughs, right? The other character that he's flirting with finally laughs. And so that tension starts to break, right? You have a rip in the paper and you start to pull tighter and tighter until ultimately it rips. That's the expression that you want within your dialogue, is that feeling of like, oh my gosh, oh, stop. So we're going to see that.
Your trepidation in repeating it. Heinrich apparently hates the moniker the good people of Prague have bestowed on him. Actually, why he would hate the name the Hangman's baffling to me. It would appear he's done everything in his power to earn it. But I, on the other hand, love my unofficial title. Precisely
you missed all the good
because
stuff.
I've earned it. The feature that makes me such an effective hunter of the Jews is, as opposed to most German soldiers, I can think like a Jew, where they can only think like a German. More precisely, a German soldier.
So what we've cut to here is there's this awkward moment where he's saying, what makes me so good at being a hunter of these people is that I think like these people. So he's now making it clear that he's got some sort of leg up in the situation. He's making himself exceptional. And you're like, crap, what does that mean? What does it mean to think like them? And is it going to result in them getting caught? And then you cut to a shot of the person under the floorboards seeing that same level of fear. So that's a cue to us to feel what they're feeling, right? If it's kind of like a laugh track, honestly. If I have a sitcom where I tell a bad joke, then it's probably Big Bang Theory. And in Big Bang Theory, they tell jokes and then they have a laugh track that kind of gets you to feel that same thing. If I were to do the same thing, but with a crying track or just a shot of somebody crying, right? I show a puppy, I show somebody crying, I cut back to the puppy, and I immediately feel like there's something that's stopping them from getting this puppy, right? So I'm giving the audience an emotional cue here. I should be scared. Because he's giving us a clue that he knows something we don't know. And you're like, there's no way he knows. If he knew, he wouldn't come in and ask for milk, would he? Right? So, let's see what happens. He's lighting his pipe, trying to act cool.
Determine what attribute the German people share with a beast. It would be the cunning and the predatory instinct of a hawk. But if one were to determine what attributes the Jews share with the beast, it would be that of the rat. The Führer and Goebbels' propaganda have said pretty much the same thing. But where our conclusions differ is I don't consider the comparison an insult. Consider for a moment the world of
I'm going
rats.
to get taken down if I don't keep talking. So, with that, you see this tension that is growing. You see the way that he's describing these people, and it's inconsistent. You're not really sure where he's going with his sentences. You're not really sure what he's going to do. He's asking for milk instead of for wine. He's asking to take a seat inside. He's asking people to leave. He's speaking a language you didn't know he could speak. So a lot of things here are very mysterious, which is causing us to be more intrigued by the dialogue. And with that, we're able to create greater tension, right? And you can tell that there is an aspect of, within this dialogue, dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is when you, as an audience, know something that those people in the movie don't know. So if you know something that they don't know, like there are currently people living in the walls, then there's this dramatic irony when you're like, he's hinting at the fact that they live in walls and they're in the walls. Does he know, right? And you're looking at the main character in this scene that is housing these people, and he is sitting back trying to remain calm. So there's a greater tension there because you're like, you should not be calm right now. This is a serious issue.
It's a hostile world, indeed. If a rat were to scamper through your front door right now, would you greet it with hostility?
I suppose I would.
Has a rat ever done anything to you to create this animosity you feel toward him?
Rats spread disease. They bite people.
Rats were the cause of the bubonic plague, but that's some time ago. I propose to you, any disease a rat could spread, a squirrel could equally carry. Would you agree?
Right.
Yet I assume you don't share the same animosity with squirrels that you do with rats.
And so the way that this dialogue is set up, even this, you have a tension in the way that the lines are being delivered. So let's say I have two Valley girls, and these two Valley girls are talking with each other. The dialogue isn't going to create a great amount of tension. It's going to create a great amount of unity. And so this might work in a scene where I'm trying to show how similar these two people are. But let's say they're best friends, they're Valley girls. They're like, oh my God, totally. This is so totally crazy. And then it cuts back to the other character, and the other character's like, oh my gosh, you're so right. This is so crazy. Even if they're arguing about something, like let's say they're arguing about going to Claire's when Claire's should be closed because the coronavirus. Let's see if it's working again. Fingers crossed. And we're up again. All four people who are still here. Oh, great. 3. You're all lovely and amazing. With this being said.
No.
Yet they're both rodents, are they not? And except for the tail, they even rather look alike.
Okay, I think everything is up and running. Are people still here? Hey, Brianna. Okay, cool. Good. Hey, Kenna. All right, then we'll keep talking. Good. So, with this being said, I was giving the example of two Valley Girls. The two Valley Girls are talking to each other, and they're saying generally the same thing back and forth to each other. I can build unity in that dialogue, but I'm not building much tension. So let's say the one saying, oh my gosh, I really want to go to Claire's, and I want to get my ears pierced, and then the other one's like, oh, aren't we like supposed to stay inside right now? Like, that's just ridiculous. You shouldn't be going out, right? The way that they're talking makes it difficult for me to hear one dialogue from the other, and the way that they're talking to each other makes it difficult for me to differentiate the two characters. But everything in the way that this is being said shows us more about who's in charge in the dialogue, right? Our Nazi is taking the lead in the dialogue and leading him with these questions. And with those questions, we have the answers are very short, very gruff, and very muffled, right? All of that is suggesting to me greater things about their characters. This one guy is trying to hide stuff. This other guy knows more than he's letting on. So let's see if that changes.
It's an interesting thought there, Colonel.
However interesting as the thought may be, it makes not one bit of difference to how you feel. If a rat were to walk in here right now as I'm talking, would you greet it with a source of your delicious milk?
Is this stream working?
I didn't think so. You don't like them. You don't really know why you don't like them. All you know is you find them repulsive.
This is the stream then. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. So you have this idea of like, you don't like rats, you don't know why you don't like rats, but you find them repulsive. He's putting words into the other character's mouth, which is, of course, illuminating more about his character. The tension is continuing to grow, and as the scene develops, we're going to see that.
Consequently, a German soldier conducts a search of a house suspected of hiding Jews. Where does the hawk look? He looks in the barn, he looks in the attic, he looks in the cellar, he looks everywhere he would hide. But there's so many places it would never occur to a hawk to hide.
And so he is not explicitly stating, hey, I know where you're keeping everybody, and yet that implication and the way that he's speaking, his openness, his lack of reservation, he's leaned back, he's sitting back very much like, I know where they are. I know. But he's never saying those words. What he's saying is, I know some things, and these things are important. And you're like, oh no. Oh my gosh, when is he going to just let it out? When are these people going to get caught? Or when is this guy going to catch on and try and stop this from happening, right?
However, the reason the Führers brought me off my Alps in Austria and placed me in French cow country today is because it does occur to me. Because I'm aware what tremendous feats human beings are capable of once they abandon dignity. May I smoke my pipe as well?
Please, go and make yourself at home.
Okay, so now there's this ridiculous image that's popped up. He's also got a pipe, but the pipe is much larger. The pipe is almost comically large, and there's this tension in their visuals that shows this one guy is from this rural country, this other guy is a very elite upper class kind of person, and he is outsmarting or outwitting our what we think of as the hero in this situation, the one that's trying to protect the innocent people. He uses the guy's matches without asking. You see in the guy's face, just in this awkward pause, you see in the farmer's face some realization.
That I must have my men enter your home and conduct a thorough search before I can officially cross your family's name off my list. And if there are any irregularities to be found, rest assured there will be. That is unless you have something to tell me that makes the conducting of a search unnecessary. I might add also that any information that makes the performance of my duty easier...
This moment is like really, really tense.
Actually, quite the contrary.
Never once does he say, I know, and every part of you knows that he knows, and every part of the other guy's silence seems to communicate that the other guy, our hero in this situation, also is aware, right? It's like, surely we will find stuff. And you're like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're going to find stuff? How do you know those things?
Will be met with reward. And that reward will be your family will cease to be harassed in any way by the German military during the rest of our occupation of your country.
And so a complete lack of dialogue here, just shots of the people's faces as they look back and forth between each other. And you see that they're using this idea of dialogue creating tension to just let that tension sit. We're as close to the moment of him saying, yes, I know that you have people in your house, as we're ever going to get. We get this moment where he's like, you can get something out of this, but you don't trust him because you know he's a Nazi, so it's pulling one way. And you know that this guy wants to get out of it. He wants to save his family, but he also doesn't want to rat these people out. And so that tension is growing.
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
And now he says it. So we start to have a tear. What's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Yes.
Oh, he gives in.
You're sheltering them underneath your floorboards, aren't you?
That's what we're getting from this.
Yes.
Point out to me the areas where they're hiding.
And he points towards the walls / the floorboards. And now there's pointing going on. You see that he's completely caved. Now there's greater tension that's outside of the dialogue.
They're listening, they don't speak English.
Yes.
I'm going to switch back to French now, and I want you to follow my masquerades out clear.
Yes.
Monsieur l'Apodite.
And you hear the music is building this tension.
Pour le lait et pour votre hospitalité. Il me semble que nous en avons terminé. Ah, mesdames, je vous remercie pour le temps que vous m'avez consacré. Nous n'ennuierons pas votre famille plus longtemps.
And so the way that I've sort of displayed the dialogue tearing, every single time I've said that it's pulled so tight that the rip just sort of tears it all apart. But in reality, this is like a slow simmer, right? Where you're seeing these two things pull apart and it's very slowly ripping, right? And that rip, I hope I don't need that piece of paper. That rip as it's tearing, you're like, no. And almost hoping that you can stop it from tearing too far. Now, long story short, he doesn't stop it. It is very, very sad. And that is the end of that scene. I'm going to leave it there because you can watch the movie if you want to. But that scene is the most powerful, in my opinion. The rest of it becomes a lot of the same sort of things that I think are problematic with the way that we deal with the Holocaust in popular culture, which is to ultimately turn it into this part of pop culture that can be turned into memes or turned into films or turned into products that we buy into. And it's really difficult to wrestle with the reality of that while also wrestling with the commodification of that reality. So I don't like when history turns those sort of situations into things to be bought and sold, creative properties. I think that that's a little bit twisted. So nothing illustrates that more than the movies that came out about 9/11 right after 9/11 happened. I just don't like it. In the same way, I'm not a big fan of Quentin Tarantino. I've said that already, but I do think that that's a powerful realization about how dialogue works when it works well. You're creating the maximum amount of tension between these two characters. You're trying your best not to explicitly state what that tension is, right? I saw a meme, not a meme, but like a picture on the internet, so a meme, that was of a text back and forth, and somebody said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And the response was, "I'm feeling really torn up. There's something that I have to talk to you about in person." And then the person responds with, "Okay, well, can you come over later?" And she says, "Yeah." And he says, "Are you breaking up with me?" And then it just says red, right? That's an intense building up of the situation. "How are you doing?" starts off very kind, very cordial. And then as you get more information about it, she's going to come over. All of a sudden you have this moment where the tension builds and you're like, oh no, she never actually had to say, "I'm breaking up with you," for you to get the full picture of what that story was going to be. She was going over to his house to break up with him, right? That's where we get really powerful dialogue, is when you have unique voices, and those unique voices are portraying unique parts of the dialogue. So you maybe have a quiet character and a loud character, or a person who's leading and the person who's answering, a person who is, it's creating a dance, right? A person who is leading like in a dance, and a person who's following in that sense. So sorry, Jocelyn. Don't laugh, Jocelyn. So you're creating this dance that you're doing, and that allows it to create a greater tension, right? That there's two different people who are playing this out, or multiple different people. When you look at the way that like Joss Whedon creates dialogue, it is multiple different people pulling in different directions, and it's a masterclass in dialogue that we could talk about again next week. But ultimately, when we boil it down to just the basics, if you want a powerful scene in a really crappy romantic comedy, then all you have to do is have explicitly stated goals, and you can say, "Hey, I like you," and the other person says, "I'm not really into you," and that's a scene, right? Now you have two people pulling in different directions, and they're exploring that thought together. Whereas a good romantic comedy, as Blue just asked, or lack of tension to make it good, right? How would you use tension or lack of tension to make it good? So in a romantic comedy setting, the best romantic comedy scenes that I can think of are probably an Elf, right? Elf, you have a character who is not romantic, right? You have this dopey dude, and when he first meets this girl, he is sort of enamored with the girl, so you immediately see what his motivation is. You wouldn't think of him as being romantically motivated because he's childlike in his mind, and then you have this other girl that's just like, "I'm not having it at all." So every step closer to romantic that they get seems like it's almost accidental. It's played out by mistakes that are made, right? Are in fanfics with it. Yes. Yes. So unspoken tensions. What, you want to show off a kitty cat?
No, I think I do.
Yeah. She's gonna bite me again. I've been watching a lot of... Ow! What did I just say? I've been watching a lot of Tiger King, and she's like very upset that we're watching other cats without her, and that she's not the priority. So she sits on her lap and she's purring, but she still doesn't like me. There's tension there. That's dialogue. So when we talk about like a romantic comedy scene, cat for dinner, Jocelyn, what's going on in your head? So when you talk about a romantic comedy scene like that, you have this unspoken tension because you have two characters that likely wouldn't be paired together, and you're seeing them in this situation as it evolves, right? You're seeing this tension as it evolves, and ultimately you have some sort of culminating thing. What does it look like for them to get together? Another really great example of a romantic comedy that played out over multiple episodes, I think that The Office's relationship as it plays out with Jim and Pam is very powerful dialogue storytelling, where the way that they talk to each other, there's flirtation there without them ever talking about it. There's gift giving that symbolizes flirtation, and there is a lot of like nuance to what they're talking about. And they also had the benefit of having those cut twos where they did the interviews so you could see more about it, right? You want to write a musical based off of the song Stacy's Mom, right? A completely different end. What about dialogue in horror? Okay, dialogue in horror oftentimes ends up being the easiest way to write dialogue because the tension is clear and external, right? So when you have something that is scary in a typical horror movie, it's like there's a sound coming from the basement. When the dialogue is there's a sound coming from the basement and then somebody gets up and they walk over to the basement, then everyone's really tense and they're like, oh no, don't go to the basement, right? When you create a tension where there's some aspect of dramatic irony where you know that the reason why there was a sound in the basement is because of the person that they're sitting right next to is keeping somebody down there. So now you have a tension that is unspoken where they're saying, don't go into the basement, right? And you're like, yeah, don't go into the basement. If you go into the basement, he's going to think that you've found out everything and he's going to kill you. Don't go into the basement. But also you kind of want to go into the basement because that's where your best friend is, right? Now you've created these different aspects of the plot that are pulling in those different directions. And then every bit of dialogue should be hinting back to the tension that has been created, right? I'm just going to go get some milk. The milk is right by the basement. So her saying, I'm going to go get some milk, right? All of a sudden you're like, no, don't. He knows. And now maybe she knows she's trying to get to the basement without letting on that she's trying to get to the basement. And so the other guy's like, no, it's actually, the milk went bad. You don't need to worry about the milk, right? I have some tea right here. Why don't you sip some of this tea, right? And then it cuts to him like putting something in the tea. And you're like, no, don't take the tea. But now how can she not take the tea? Because she just said she was thirsty. That's why she got up. You're drawing back to the tension without actually drawing attention to what's in the basement, right? He's a landlady. Okay. Yeah, and I think that is ultimately avoiding being explicit while also being very intentional in creating a tension outside of the dialogue is how you create dialogue that increases your tension. Ultimately, your plot, like what is going on, takes forefront. That should be where you're focusing the majority of your writing when it comes to a script. Your script should be focused on, I want to convey this story. This person wants something. They can't get that thing because this thing is in the way, and this ultimately illustrates some bigger thing about the world, right? When it comes to superhero movies, it's really simple because it's like this person wants to do what's right because they weren't necessarily a good person. This person is a bad person who wants to do stuff that's evil and is going to stop them from doing what's right. So you're rooting for Mr. Does What's Right, and you're rooting against Mr. Basically a Nazi, right? And that's how you create a superhero dialogue, a superhero plot. If we go from that, then every single ounce of dialogue should be hinting back to that original tension. You look at something like Captain America. Everything that he says reminds us that he's not in his proper time, that he is trying to do what's right at all times, that he is conflicted about his role in this world, right? All of those tensions are in every line that he delivers. And the reason why it's funny that he gets that reference is because he's this man that's outside of time, right? It's very much defined by his plot. And so we start with plot. Is there a plot that is creating tension? And is that why we need to go into dialogue? If I just want to have two characters having a conversation and I want that to be as real as possible, then I'm going to have a floppy piece of paper. And that is okay. Creating that realistic dialogue can be a great escape. I don't watch I don't play Animal Crossing because there's a tension that is in there. I play because it's a relief of tension. So when I give these outlines of how to create good dialogue, it's not prescriptive like you should always do this and if you don't, you have failed. I'm saying you should do this if you want it to resonate like some of the best stuff that we have, but ultimately that might not be your goal. right? I just want to explore what it would be like for these two characters that I'm in love with in the show to have a conversation over tea, right? If you wanted to do that, it would probably be better if they had something to actually talk about, right? So I'm going to say like Deku and All Might are having a conversation. Let's just go with those two characters. And All Might's like, hey, I heard your grades have been slipping. And so now you have All Might taking on the character of like paternal figure. And you're like, oh, is he supposed to be like a dad to Deku, or is Deku like into All Might, right? And then All Might is like sitting there like, I just really want to like be what's best for you because I really love you. And then Deku is like, I love you too, right? Then you have this awkward fanfic, right? Miss Ely is cringing off the screen. Dairy Arab woman living in the woods with her best lady friend, making clothes and selling gourds. It's the wait, what just happened? And the teeth. You guys are making reference to something that I do not understand. So, with this being said, the way that you then create dialogue in that situation is with those two tensions. Like, I don't want to get in trouble, and also this other character being like, I want to be firm and tell him that he messed up, but I don't want to come off as too firm. I'm just going to let that be an awkward moment. I'm sorry. So, let Deku accidentally call All Might Dad 2020. Yeah. So then you have these unspoken things, right? And hinting at those unspoken things, like a hand touching another hand, creates a tremendous amount of tension. And that allows for the romance to play out in a deeper way, rather than it just being like, I kind of like you. And the other person being like, I don't know. What will our parents think? You're like, oh, that person likes that other person. I can tell from the way that they're talking to each other. No, they couldn't really like each other. And then the next scene, he's sitting there talking to his best friend, and his best friend's like, hey, you said that you weren't going to like anybody. And he's like, yeah, I don't. And you're like, well, then why were you talking to Sandy that way? Right? I hate my fake dialogue. I'm not going to lie. Oh my God. Okay. The real content is in the live chat at this point. Sweet Caroline. Ba, ba, ba.
What?
Take it away, Miss Ely.
No, thank you.
Well, I'm yelling into the microphone at this point. I'm glad you guys are all having fun. Here's some big updates. The big updates are this week is a time where everyone's supposed to be getting training. All the teachers are supposed to be getting training. Next week is when all of the teachers are supposed to be introducing you guys to what their plans are, and we're supposed to be having a schedule. So don't get stressed yet. We don't know what it looks like. No, thank you. We don't know what it's going to look like. As next week comes up, I want to encourage you guys to push yourselves in communicating clearly to your teachers what you would like it to look like, because that's ultimately what is going to stop you from being stressed later. So when I say don't get stressed yet, then just know that that means that you can put your foot down later. April 3rd is also when we get info on each specific AP test. Yes. So you'll have a week of like pseudo online school while we work out the kinks, and then you'll have a week off. No joke. You'll have a week for spring break. I'll still be making some stuff. I might cut down for whatever reason, because mental health or whatever. I shouldn't do as much as I am. But then when we come back, it's supposed to be like actual online school. But also it's when they said, I'm going to pass that idea along to her. So, yeah, I'll make it happen. Should she do it as me? That's the real question. No.
I can't read it?
No, it's a secret. Yeah, I'll tell her. With this being said, okay. Yeah, I'll give her a backwards hat and everything. It'll be great. Great idea, guys. I'm glad you're participating in the creative process. Put her in the baseball cap. She's very concerned. Okay, well, that saves me a lot of time and energy. I can be the one that's taking care of the pets. Give her a beard. I like how much caps are going on here. She's using her hair to create a beard. Her beard's going to be way more epic than mine.
I don't know. It's gonna be creepy.
You're doing origami, so you can figure it out. Kenna, did you need a picture? Are you still here? I know I say that every time, and then you're like, yeah, of course I'm still here. But are you still here? My hat! My hairs! Okay, show them.
I don't want to.
Show them.
Did they want me to be you in a live stream?
Yeah, because tomorrow's April Fool's. Oh. Show them.
Okay.
Show
So
them.
guys, you don't want this. My beard. I gotta work on it, but I can work on it for you guys if you want.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Cool. All right. Deal.
Lovely. Lovely. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, Kenna does not seem to be responding, so we'll assume that she got her daily picture. Ah, it's daily picture time. Fake daily picture. All right. With that being said, yeah, I'm going to sign off so that we can get ready for the next live stream, which is tonight. We're going to be playing some video games. Get onto the Minecraft server because I think it's going to be a blast. I want to stay away from Animal Crossing so that Sammy doesn't get mad at me again. With that being said, stomp your clap your slaps. Everybody yell quack. Let's play Roblox. Bye, guys. You're amazing.